Hey guys, it's Wheeling the Gamer Girl here, and I just wanted to say happy CMY to everyone and to some people who are celebrating it. And eventually, this week, I am having a 1 week CMY break, and because the group projects hasn't started yet, since some of my friends are celebrating CMY as well in China, today we'll actually be doing a discussion for the Bay City Rollers debut album Rollin. So if you don't know this album, this is actually the first full-length album that was actually released by the Scottish band the Bay City Rollers. This actually included 3 British chart hits, Remember, Shang-a-Lang, and Summer Love Sensation. They also have the debut of Saturday Night, which was actually recorded with Les McEwen being the lead singer at the time. And as well as this, the song Saturday Night was actually not a British hit yet, but a year later in 1975, so that was actually 50 years ago, it became a #1 hit in America. So actually, the studio album was released in October of 1974, and actually, the recording was recorded in 1973 and 1974. As well as this, at the time being, since this album was not released on Arista at the time, it was actually produced by Bell Records as well. So they actually do have singles from Rolling, So, Remember, Shalala, Shang-a-Lang, and Summer Love Sensation were all released in 1974, but Saturday Night was actually released in 1975. So, as you only know about the song Saturday Night, as I actually mentioned in the previous video, which is going to premiere in March, I've actually scheduled it. So Saturday Night was actually a song that was sung by Gordon Noby Clark, but unfortunately, with the limited success that they had before the rise of Rollermania, Gordon Noby Clark decided to quit the band in order to pursue a solo career. So that's why their lack of success became a failure at that time. So the album itself was not released in America, but several of the songs would later appear on the self-titled US debut. So for the US debut, they actually do have songs from their first length album Rolling and Once Upon a Star. That is also their second studio album, which actually was featured during the rise of Rollermania. So for the track listing, we have 2 sites, and actually it depends on which app you're using, because Apple Music actually does have 16 songs, and I do believe on Shazam they also have 16 songs. Spotify as well, yes, I do believe they have 16 songs. However, in this album, they actually do have side 1 and side 2. So there are actually 6 songs on side 1 and 6 songs on side 2. So they'll be equal to 12 sides of the track. So actually, some of the songs are cover versions. Let me give you an example. So Be My Baby is actually a cover version. The song, as I mentioned before, was actually sung by the 60s American band The Ronettes. So they have a lot of versions for Be My Baby. I actually do like the Bay City Rollers version of Be My Baby. They also have Remember, Shalala. It was actually recorded by Gordon Noby Clark just before he left the band. So Les actually stepped up and he recorded the song. As well as this, we do have some of the cover versions of songs like Please Stay and also There Goes My Baby. These songs are most likely from the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. So the rest of them are actually their own songs, like Summer Love Sensation. In 1977, if I'm not mistaken, there was another singer who sang a cover version of the song Summer Love Sensation. As well as this, for the 2004 UK reissue, that actually includes 4 bonus tracks. Are You Ready for That Rock and Roll? The original B-side of Shang-a-Lang, bringing back the good times, the B-side of Summer Love Sensation, Bye Bye Barbara, and Hey CB. It was also on the B-side of the original UK single Saturday Night. That was actually recorded in 1973, just 5 months before he left the band and was replaced by lead singer Les McEwen. And that was the reason why this was recorded with Nobby Clark and John Devane before McEwen and Wood had joined the band. Unusually, there's actually the original recording of Saturday Night, but this was actually not included in this reissue, which has actually been issued on subsequent compilations. So actually, there was one album which also had the Gordon Nobby Clark version. If I'm not mistaken, it's actually the anthology version. So they have tracks from 1971 right until 1981. So the 1981 songs from Ricochet are also included, including Elevator and Voxx. That actually included Duncan 4, and as I mentioned earlier, yes, they were actually released in 1979, 1980, and 1981. So actually in 1979, we could definitely do see the anthology album. They added some songs from the Rollers. Previously was the Bay City Rollers, but after they split up in 1978 due to a concert incident in Osaka that involved an onstage fight with both McEwen and Wood, and that caused him to get sacked out of the band, pursuing a solo career, and he was unable to launch his solo career in UK. However, he did a lot of solo careers in Japan, so that's why in 1978, I do believe that was the cause of the band being split up. I do recall some of the songs being here in Shang-a-Lang and also the Croft Superstar Hour. So actually, none of the songs were here on Side 2, except for Saturday Night. Yes, this is the song that's actually mentioned in the Croft Superstar Hour. So that's one of the reasons why they actually had that song in their debut album. The rest of the songs, if I'm not mistaken, after Foray left in 1981, and a year later, as McEwen, McGlynn, and Mitchell joined the band for a Japan reunion tour. Yes, these songs are actually included in their Japan tour as well. Not all the songs are actually included, but I'm not too sure about Strangers in the Wind if they are included. That's the thing. I don't 100% think they were actually included. And the ones with Duncan Foray, no, they were not included in the Japan tour. So yeah. So actually, it's a really good album actually. It's very good. So actually for the weekly charts, yeah, the UK album actually went up to number 1, and this album along with Once Upon a Star are the only UK albums to reach number 1. The rest of them actually reached the top chart, receiving a UK gold, except for Strangers in the Wind, which is not included. And the rest of the Rollers album with Duncan Foray, it's actually not included as well, as this one actually only includes popular albums from Rollin, Once Upon a Star, Wouldn't You Like It, Dedication, and It's a Game. So actually when I found out on the Wikipedia, they actually included the UK Gold certifications. I'm not too sure what it is, but I do believe that the UK certifications are for the popular albums. So yeah. Alright, that's all for the topic today. If you do have any questions on the video, please do let me know and I'll be able to answer all your questions. So yeah, that's it for now. This is me signing off. Okay, so today's video will be really short, is because one, I have to focus on my assignments before the end of next week, and we're just gonna do one little album discussion, which is called Once Upon a Star. Now this is actually the second studio album that was actually created by the Bay City Rollers. And actually they do have their number 1 hit single, Bye Bye Baby. So this single for Bye Bye Baby was actually created by the Four Seasons back in the 60s. But the Bi-City Rollers had their own version of Bye Bye Baby. So that's one of the reasons why the song was actually on the #1 hit in the UK. So basically there are actually some songs which also features from the album Once Upon a Star. So actually they do have some albums. So they have Bye Bye Baby, which is actually the #1 album and song that was actually featured on Top Pop. You guys can just go and see the video. It was actually uploaded 9 years ago, along with some of the albums, the songs, which are actually here. So yeah. So actually, you could just see on the Wikipedia for Bye Bye Baby. This one is actually the Bi-City Rollers version. It was released on February 28, 1975. And this is actually one of the albums that was released in the UK. It was actually the single, the only one from the second studio album. It had reached #1 in the UK, Ireland, and Australia. It was also a hit in other several music markets around the world. It was #1 on the UK single charts for 6 weeks from March of 1975, and this actually ended the year for UK's top-selling single of 1975. So for the Four Seasons version, it's quite sparse because it actually has the instrumental backing instead of being carried by the vocals. The Bi-City Rollers version is actually faster and has a fuller backing sound. It was actually played the lowest step, and this actually includes the 8-bar guitar solo by Eric Faulkner, who was actually a session musician. He was not presented in the original, so basically yes, that was actually one of the reasons why the song went on to #1 in Australia, Ireland, and the UK. The rest of them, with the peak position, they were from the top 10 and the top 100 if I'm not 100% mistaken. Yeah, they also have another songs called the Disco Kid La Virginie, When Will You Be Mine, in which Stuart Woody Wood and Eric Faulkner sing the lead, while Les plays the guitar. But he also joins in with the rest of the band members as well. I do remember there were some songs that was actually featured in the Shang-a-Lang show, and yes, those songs were actually very, very popular back in the mid-70s when Rollermania had their charged for it. They also have Keep On Dancing, so this is actually the Les McEwen version of the song. Keep On Dancing was actually the single from 1971, and yes, it was sang by Gordon Novi Clark. Unfortunately, the 1971 version was a fail, and basically, as the singles were failing in 1973, Gordon Novi Clark decided to quit the band and move on to a solo career. So that's why he was replaced by lead singer Les McEwen, as I actually mentioned it earlier. So there are other cover versions as well, and the song for their version topped #9 in the UK. And as well as this, they also have other songs like Angel Baby, Let's Go, Once Upon a Star, Malina, My Teenage Heart, Rock and Roll Honeymoon, in which Alan sings the lead as well. And yes, there are some episodes and some concerts where Alan Longmire was the one who sang Rock and Roll Honeymoon and Hey Beautiful Dreamer by Faulkner, McEwen, and Wood. There was also a 2004 UK reissue of the CD. From Bell, they actually included 5 bonus tracks from All of Me Loves All of You, which is a 1974 single. It was not on the Bi-City Rollers debut album, but instead it was actually on the Once Upon a Star album. So that's one of the reasons why it wasn't featured in this album. But I do remember it was actually featured on the Absolute Rollers, the best of the Bi-City Rollers, which was released in 1980. That was actually 2 years after Les left the band. And they actually did one album which is called Voxx, which were also named renamed as the Rollers, which actually included South African frontman from Rabbit Duncan Foray. And the bump is from the B-side Keep On Dancing, the 1971 version where Gordon Noby Clark sang Alright and It's For You. As well as this, if you can see some of the episodes from Shang-a-Lang, yes, I do see that Les actually plays the guitar in some of the episodes. But basically in some of the episodes, he would be using the microphone and sing. That was actually one of the reasons why some of the songs were here, and some of the songs that were actually featured in the Shang-a-Lang show. Yes, I would just say, in my opinion, these songs were actually very popular. And basically, yes, we do see that Les is actually the lead and backing vocals. He also plays the acoustic and electric guitars. And yes, there was also another rare video that I found on YouTube. If I'm not mistaken, it was actually Lift Off with Aisha. It was in 1974. And yes, we do see a rare footage of the video, so you could just check it out and see. I'm not forcing everyone to do it. So yeah. They also have some of the songs from the show Once Upon a Star as well. And that was actually one of the reasons why it was actually featured in some concerts and shows in the 1970s. So yeah, there are also some songs as well which were also featured in the Croft Superstar Hour. It was actually the biggest mistake that the Rollers did before they split up. And that was one of the reasons why the songs was here in Shang-a-Lang and the Croft Superstar Hour. Yes, there are some live footages for these songs as well. However, the quality is really, really bad. So unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to see it well. And I would just say not many people do like the Croft Superstar Hour because, when the teen magic is gone, the trends change, as I mentioned it earlier. So yeah. So actually, this is a really good album. This is actually one of the songs, the first time one of their cover albums was put into Bye Bye Baby, the first album that became the #1 UK hit. Anyways, I think that's all for this short discussion. If you do have any questions on this video, yes, feel free to ask. And feel free to know, what are your favorite BCR albums. I don't think that, BCR is definitely popular in Malaysia. Although, yes, I do see one comment to say that there was a Roller fan pen pal in Malaysia, as mentioned in the other video. I'm not gonna say the name, okay, that would be wrong, but I do recall that was actually the case. There was actually one Roller fan pen pal in Malaysia during the Rollers heydays. So yes, that was actually the one that I've mentioned. Anyways, that's all for now, and if you do have any questions, do let me know. And yeah, you know the drill. I'll see you guys real soon. For today's album we are going to discuss is the Bay City Rollers US debut album. So this is actually a compilation album that was released by the Scottish pop band the Bay City Rollers. It was released exclusively in North America to launch their band's career, and at the time, Rollermania was still booming out. Because of this, the band actually went on a US tour in September of 1975. And they did promote their songs here, and a lot of American fans were really happy to see the band performing, especially on stage. And because of this, the compilation, which actually reached #1 on the RPM Canadian music chart on the 7th of February 1976. This reaches high as #20 as the US album chart. It included their US and Canadian #1 hit single Saturday Night. And because of this LP actually contained tracks mostly from the band's first 3 UK-only albums, like 5 songs from Rollin, 4 songs from Once Upon a Star, and 1 song from Wouldn't You Like It. As well as this, there was a brand new song in addition, with the album that actually has a US mix of Summer Love Sensation. It was a much fuller mix with strings, which actually became available on CD with the US release of the Definite Collection. So the track listing, they actually have 11 songs like Give a Little Love, Bye Bye Baby, Shang-a-Lang, Marlena, Let's Go, Hugging and a Kissing in the Moonlight, Be My Baby, Summer Love Sensation, Remember, Shalala, Saturday Night, My Teenage Heart, and a cover version of Keep on Dancing. So 2 of them are actually cover versions of the song, like Be My Baby and Keep on Dancing, while the rest of them, they sang it by themselves as originals. As well as this, yes, these ones, 5 the songs are from Rollin and they were released in 1974. 4 songs were from Once Upon a Star, and 1 song was from Wouldn't You Like It, the same year that they've actually released. So it was recorded for 2 years in 1973, 1974, and 1975. As well as this, yes, it still remains the same that Eric Faulkner was actually supposed to be on the guitar. But it was a mistake actually, because he was supposed to be on the lead guitar. And the rest of them are actually correct. So there's no changes, except for when, I do recall that Les did play guitar in one of the songs right here on their concert tour in America. I'm not going to show the video because this video is actually copyright. So yeah, that's actually the reasons why I really don't want to show this video, is because sometimes this may block the video, particularly not in all countries, but except in one country, because I've been uploading these videos for for maybe around a year or something. I'm not too sure. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I don't want to show this video. But I think this one is actually pretty good because, in their cover version of the album, in the Vice City Rollers Vivo, which is not active, I do see that there was actually 2 videos of the Rollers with Duncan Foy. So that's actually one of the reasons why it was renamed the Rollers. This is probably one of the reasons why this song was only featured on the Vivo, and the rest of the songs were not here. So I'm not too sure what happened, but who knows. And as well as this, I'm just gonna say that this is the best album along with the Definite Collection. And I think I do believe the Definite Collection was released maybe elsewhere, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure about it, but that one I will have to find out because it's a little bit challenging for me. And sometimes when you don't see that kind of album, you will I thought this album was probably going to be bad. But I don't think it's that bad for me, because this album actually is really good, and I do believe that sometimes when you have this album right here, it's it takes you back to the mid-70s, and that's one of the reasons why this album was still popular. Okay, and as well as this, I would like to say that it's been 50 years since this album has been released, and it's also their 50th anniversary since they went to the US to perform songs for the band, and that was one of the reasons why they were on tour at that time. So yeah, I would just say that song is really good, and actually that one is actually really great for brains. It's really great for studying. But anyways guys, I think that's all that I can say about this album, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Really sorry about that, my throat's a bit dry. And anyways guys, that's all for now, and this is me. Guys, it's Wheeling the Gamer Girl here, and today we're discussing an album called Wouldn't You Like It. So Wouldn't You Like It is actually the 3rd studio album that was released by the Scottish pop rock group the Vice City Rollers. The LP actually was issued in late 1975 in the UK. This actually had a marked change with the group's musical direction, and because of this, all the songs were saved with one of the band's own compositions. The Outside was actually written with the tune Give a Little Love, was a UK hit, and it was also a hit song, which means it was a recorded song or instrumental that actually became widely popular or well known. And as well as this is the only single from their album, and because of this, This also included a giant letter, a free color picture book, and individual members with the band picture on the front. And because of this, 7 of the tracks that would appear on Arista's records, this would actually produce the 1976 US-only album Rock and Roll Love Letter that was actually used for the same cover photo and artwork. And yeah, this is what I've been seeing, because Rock and Roll Love Letter was actually Alan's last US appearance before he left the band, only to be replaced by Ian Mitchell. While on the UK, Wouldn't You Like It was actually Alan's last appearance with the band before he left and Ian took over. So Give a Little Love was actually written by the Scottish boy band, the Bay City Rollers. It was actually produced by Johnny Goodison and Phil Wainman. It was also produced by Wayman as well. So Give a Little Love was actually released in July of 1975. This was the only single from the Bay City Rollers' third studio album, Wouldn't You Like It? This actually spent 3 weeks reaching number 1 on the UK singles chart, and it became the group's second and final number 1 single in the UK, and it was the 6th biggest selling single of 1975 in the UK. And this is actually their German single, and the Rollers were actually wearing the same outfits previously on Once Upon a Star, and that was actually the only album that was actually featured in here. But unlike the single version, the original UK album version is augmented with a string section. The US only Bay City Rollers album had the rhythm track with no strings, but the song was not released as a single in the US, so that's the reason why the charts from Australia, Ireland, Norway, Sweden, UK, and Germany actually did reach the top 10 and also the top 5. The year-end charts for Australia reached position of 29, and UK British Market Research Bureau reached number 6. As well as this is actually a certification from the region of the UK, and their certification is actually gold. For the certified units and sales that the band actually sold for this song is actually 500 copies. So that's actually the reason why the song was actually featured. So for the UK release for Bell Records 8002, they were all tracks are written by Eric Faulkner and Stuart Woody-Wood, except when they were noted, such as Shanghai in Love, which is the only song that they have sang. So for the lead vocals, yes, McEwen is still on the lead vocals, except for Shanghai in Love. And because of this, there's also another version, side 2. So actually, Here Comes the Feeling Again was actually the lead vocals by Alan Longmire, and Derek's End Piece was actually instrumental, but there was a spoken outro by Derek Longmire himself. In 2024, there was a UK CD reissued for Bell that has 4 bonus tracks. Saturday Night, which actually did appear on the Japanese pressings of the original LP, She'll Be Crying Over You. It was originally a B-side of the UK single, Give a Little Love, and 2 previously unused tracks featuring the former lead singer at the time before the band gained popularity, Gordon Noby Clark, on the lead vocal of 1972's version, Wouldn't You Like It? It was actually entirely different from 1975, Wouldn't You Like It and I'll Do It Again. So for the weekly charts right here, I'm just saying that all of this doesn't look bad, especially in Europe, but in Japan, which is actually Oricon album chart, it reached number 21 for the peak position. And for the year-end charts for 1976, the New Zealand album actually reached and position 9 on 25. Sorry about that, my throat's a bit dry, so please do forgive me if I'm speaking that way. Okay, so we got the personnel again, and I noticed that Stuart Woody-Wood and Eric Faulkner were actually on the lead vocals in Shanghai in Love. Alan Longmire was actually the lead vocalist on Here Comes That Feeling Again, and Derek Longmire is also on the drums with the backing vocal position and spoken word on Derek's End Piece. As well as this, it was actually produced in England by those engineers and Also, for the music director and producer, it's still the same. The sleeve design was actually designed by the Green Bay Packers art company. The cover photography is by John Paul. Insert photography by Alan Ballard and John Dyer. And as well as this, there's not much I can really talk about for this album, since, you know, this is actually one of the UK only albums, the third studio album that actually features the last appearance of Alan Longmire before Ian was actually replaced. So actually, it was not only his last album right here, but Rock and Roll Love Letter was actually the last one that Alan would appear in before he was replaced by Ian Mitchell. So that's what actually happened. But although yes, I've been seeing that Shanghai in Love, I'm not too sure if Les plays the guitar or not, because I do believe that Les does play the guitar at times, sometimes he doesn't, so it depends. And some of the tracks from Wouldn't You Like It do appear on the Christmas special in Shang-a-Lang as well. And I've noticed the songs that actually appear in the Christmas special is Don't Stop the Music, Lovely to See You, and I think most likely Money Honey, which was actually here. But I don't think Money Honey was here, because I do believe Money Honey was actually released on their other album, which is Rock and Roll Love Letter. But it's on the UK of their album Dedication, so I'm not too sure why it was never featured here. But anyways, I think that's all I can really say about this album. I think this album is actually really good. Sorry about that. And I do believe, you know, if that album was actually good, I think a lot of people would have sung it. So yeah. And I do believe that album actually was really good. I'm just saying because I don't think I've actually, you know, listened to a lot of these songs except for these two, which is Don't Stop the Music, Lovely to See You. And as well as this, I Only Want to Dance With You is also another song on their track as well. So yeah, I think that one, the song, which is I Only Want to Dance With You, is actually from their show Shang-a-Lang, and it was actually here on one of the episodes before. So yeah, that's actually the reason why it was here. But anyways guys, this is just only a short video since I don't have anything else to say besides that album. I think this album is pretty good and the cover version is pretty neat. But anyways guys, that's all for now, and this is Spee signing off. Hey guys, it's Wheeling the Gamer Girl here, and today we are going to discuss an album called Rock and Roll Love Letter. So you don't know this album, this is actually another US album that was actually released by the Bay City Rollers. It was only released in North America in early 1976 by Arista Records. This release was actually supported by two singles, Money Honey and the title track, Rock and Roll Love Letter, which both received commercial success on the US Billboard 100. It was later included on their next album, Dedication, which was released internationally. And Rock and Roll Love Letter was actually Alan's last appearance on the US album before he was replaced by Ian Mitchell the following year. So it was released in March of 1976. So that was actually like 1 month before he left the band to do a solo career. And Alan did release his album called I'm Confessing, which was only released as a single and was not really successful. On the 11 tracks for this record, they were actually lifted from the Rollers' 1975 UK release album Once Upon a Star. 7 actually came from Wouldn't You Like It, and 2 were produced and recorded singles. The cover art actually features from the same photo as Wouldn't You Like It? So the album did reach number 1 in Canada in March of 1976. This jumped from no 25 from the position for the single week to depose their previous album Bay City Rollers from the top slot. In the US, it actually reached high for number 31 on the Billboard's album chart. 2 singles from their disc was made onto the Billboard's Top 40, Money Honey, which actually reached number 1 in Canada. It peaked number 9 in the US And Rock and Roll Love Letter was actually peaked number 6 in Canada 3 months later, and number 28 in the US. This album was initially released finally on the CD along with the Bi-City Rollers. It was a 2 LP set in 2011, founded by Wounded Bird Records. So actually all of the tracks were actually released by Eric Faulkner and Stuart Woody Wood, as mentioned previously where it was noted. So Rock and Roll Love Letter was actually a cover version by Tim Moore the last time. I've mentioned this before. So yeah. And as well as this, the chart performance was still the same because Canada and Japan actually reached number 1 on the peak position, while the US Billboard 200 reached number 31. The year-end charts for 1976 reached number 6. So yeah, there's not a lot I can really talk about with this album because, I don't think there's actually a lot I can relate to because, at times that one could have been, not so popular at the time. What I'm trying to say, because I think for myself, in my opinion, that yes, I think not all the songs are actually included on their album, but I do believe that's one of the reasons why because sometimes included, sometimes they won't. So it actually depends on which album you're buying. And I do believe some of the Bay-City Rollers tracks are available in some of the stores. And I'm not too sure if the thrift store would actually provide one because, at times they don't really have this album and it's not really available. So I'm not 100% sure why they didn't sell it. So anyways, guys, I don't want to go through too much information on why this album is not really selling in Malaysia. I think we all know our reasons why they did this, and if it's not being sold in Malaysia, you just have to accept it that not all bands will tour in your country. Some will, but some won't. So just take it as a lesson learned because normally you'll see the band performing in your country, some of them won't. And I do believe that, sometimes they won't go into your country, but I'm just gonna say this in my opinion, that sometimes it would be really hard to visit them in another country. I'm just saying this in my opinion because I do believe that when we do see a lot of people, when we want to wish for something, it's not really going to happen because it's really far away. And whereas some people would live in Southeast Asia, yeah, it's a little far, so they would actually kind of recommend to stay in Southeast Asia only and East Asia, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that's what actually happened because I do believe that there are a lot of bands that tour in Malaysia, the nostalgic ones like Boney M and Air Supply. Yes, it was featured in our car radio the last time, and they were going to play somewhere in KL. So yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why they did it. So yeah, I'm just saying this in my opinion because I've been seeing this a lot of times, that they don't perform exactly in your country because sometimes they could shift to one side of another. So yeah, that was actually one of the reasons why they really don't do it. And because of this, you must accept the fact that not all bands will actually perform in your country. Some will, but some won't. So just try to accept the fact that it's not always like that, Sometimes there can be bands trying to perform in your country. Sometimes, there'll be bands that can't perform in your country because it's not popular. But you need to really accept the fact that this will go on until you know about it. I'm just not trying to be rude in here, but sometimes it's like that because I've been seeing a lot of bands before not performing in our country, and sometimes they'll only perform in certain parts of the country. Like, for example, the Bay-City Rollers are really popular in Japan, and I do believe that's the only country that they perform in Asia, not anywhere else. But I think in the US, UK, Australia, and the US, yes, it's more popular here than in Southeast Asia. So I'm just saying this in my opinion that, even if this album wasn't available in Malaysia, I do believe, YouTube is still available, and it saved the day for me because I don't really have that album, but, at that time, they weren't a lot of Bay City Rollers albums or comics back in the 70s, and they only costed like £1 at that time because they couldn't have like a lot of the fancy magazines at the time. But now, since technology developed, yeah, you can just read them online instead of buying it physically. And that's what we did the last time in the Gen Z period. But even though like some Gen Zs don't really listen to old songs, sometimes they prefer K-pop or other popular songs, that's okay, that's their choice. And because of this, I'm not trying to be rude to anyone, but this is the reality. When you get CDs like this, sometimes we all have different opinions whether to listen to the music or not. I may be an oldies girl along with the popular generation, and that's okay with me. But I'm not trying to be rude to everyone because this is what I've been seeing in real life. So yeah, that's what actually happened. But anyways guys, I think that's all for the video, and I'm gonna sign off. Hey guys, it's Wheeling the Gamer Girl here, and today we are doing a discussion on another Bay City Roller album dedication. So if you don't know this album, it is actually their fourth studio album, which was released in September of 1976. It was actually their fourth studio album, which actually features their cover album of Yesterday's Hero and one of their songs, Money Honey. Even though Money Honey was actually from their third album, which is Wouldn't You Like It, it is now on their fourth album, Dedication. This album was actually released when the band was actually on the verge for international success. By the time, it was actually still Roller Mania. Because of this, a lot of girls were screaming out their names, especially to the new boy, Ian Mitchell. And as well as this, they have another cover called I Only Want to Be With You, which is originally sung by Dusty Springfield. I've mentioned this earlier on my previous video, so please go and check it out. I also did a cover version of I Only Want to Be With You 3 years ago, just after Les died. So yeah, that was actually a video that I've actually recorded previously back then. Okay, they also have their lead single Dedication. It was actually initially recorded by Ian Mitchell, but afterwards he left the band within 10 months. It was later re-recorded by lead singer Les McEwen, who actually provided the lead vocals for this album. And as well as this, founding member Alan Longmire actually was replaced by Ian Mitchell. Because of this, he was actually sacked from the band in 1976, but made a comeback back in 1978, 2 years later, just before Les left the band. And as well as this, due to the recording sessions, there was a switch. Because of this, Ian was actually slotted as the rhythm guitarist. Stuart Woody Wood actually moved from rhythm guitar to bass, and Mitchell also provided the lead vocals for the title track. But when he left the band that year later, there was actually a version of Dedication which features Les McEwen on vocal. There was also a subsequent pressings of the LP that was also released as a single. But because the album was actually noted for being released in the UK, it actually omitted their cover version of I Only Want to Be With You, which actually made the band have a current successful single internationally. But it actually instead featured Money Honey, which actually served the album's lead single in the UK, while it actually was previously released on the North American only release of Rock and Roll Love Letter, which is actually Alan's last appearance on this cover before he left the band a month later, only to be replaced by Ian Mitchell on April 1st, 1976. So that was actually like a year after Shang-a-Lang, the show actually was aired. And because Rock and Roll Love Letter was actually an album by the Bay City Rollers, it was only released in North America in early 1976 by Arista Records. Because of the release, it actually has 2 singles, Money Honey and the title track. It actually has achieved commercial success on the US Billboard Hot 100, and later actually included the next album, Dedication, which was released internationally. And as well as this, Rock and Roll Love Letter is also another cover version, which the Bay City Rollers sang that song. Originally, it was sung by Tim Moore, second album Behind the Eyes, but it wasn't very successful. This was later covered by the band and became a top 40 hit. As well as this, the B-side is actually Shanghai in Love, which is actually from the album Wouldn't You Like It. It was also released on April of 1976, just after Alan left the band to go on a 2-year hiatus break, before he rejoined the band in 1978 to actually sing their last final album and song together for The Strangers in the Wind, which I mentioned this before. It was a failure. It was definitely a failure, and a lot of people may not be so familiar with this album, Strangers in the Wind, because it was actually a failure, and it was failed to chart in the UK except for Japan, which topped number 5. I've actually mentioned this earlier in my video, so yeah, that was actually one of the reasons why I did it. Okay, so anyways, because the Bay City Rollers version was released as a single in 1978, it was actually successful, and it reached number 6 in Canada and number 28 in the US, but the single was not successful in the UK. And because of the weekly charts, we could see the positions right here, which is actually in Australia, Canada, Germany, New Zealand, and US. So the US Billboard Hot 100 actually released their position as 28, while the US Cashbox Top 100 released it as 38. As for the year-end charts, it looks a lot different because actually I do believe after Ian left the band, Pat McGlynn took over for a while, releasing their other album, It's a Game, and that was actually the band's last success. I've mentioned this earlier before, so you can check the video out. And actually putting descriptions is a little hard because of timing purposes, so yeah, that's actually the reason why I don't want to do it. As well as this, in North America, they were actually released on 5 international albums, and 2 were only released in North America: Yesterday's Hero, Dedication, Money Honey, Rock and Roll Love Letter, and another version of the Beach Boys cover, Don't Worry Baby. They were actually released as international single releases. As well as this, Dedication actually peaked number 4 on the national albums chart in the UK, but the sales were actually lower than expected in the territory. They actually sold fewer than 1,000 copies. So actually the album fared to be better in the US, where it did peak at number 26 on the US Billboard 200 album chart. They actually sold for the excess of 500,000 copies, but it's actually the release of the band which is actually considered by Simon Spence, who's actually the author for When the Screaming Stops. And it was actually in the book as well. It's one of the Bay City Rollers books which actually talks about When the Screaming Stops. I don't know the name of it. I forgot. I'm so sorry. This is actually I need to search this one up. And it's actually beginning for a commercial decline on the band. But although, yes, I do believe that they were also popular in 1976. Yes, there were a lot of screaming girls around. So yeah. So this is actually Simon Spence's book, When the Screaming Stopped: The Dark History of the Bay City Rollers. It was actually released in 2016, where it talks about the horrific lives of the Bay City Rollers, how they split up, and how they managed to end up fighting with each other, which is kind of bad. Yeah, that's all I know. And because of the release of the album, the Bay City Rollers actually embarked on a worldwide tour, which engrossed $2 million, and it actually included sales from their merchandise. The album actually had certificate for silver because of the British phonographic industry and the gold by the Recording Industry Association of America. This album was actually popular among Americans and as well as these people outside of America. So yeah. So for the UK edition, they actually do have Let's Pretend, another version by Eric Cartman, who was actually from the Raspberries. You're a Woman, Rock and Roller, Don't Worry Baby, Yesterday's Hero, My Lisa, Money Honey, Rock and Roll Love Letter, Write a Letter, and Dedication. While in the US edition, it actually included Let's Pretend, You're a Woman, Rock and Roller, I Only Want to Be With You, Yesterday's Hero, My Lisa, Don't Worry Baby, Are You Cuckoo, Write a Letter, and Dedication. As well as this, it looks similar to the US edition CD, but they changed some of the songs as well. So we got the personal right here. So yes, we still have Les on the lead and backing vocals. We got Eric Faulkner also on the lead guitar. We got Ian Mitchell, who is on the rhythm guitar. Woody actually changed from guitar to being the bass. And Derek is still on the drums, as noticed. We do have the weekly charts and also the year-end charts as well. And this is actually their certifications where they actually released. In the UK, it's actually silver, while in the US, it's gold. And as well as this, they really did sell a lot at the time for their international popularity. So yeah, I think this album is actually really good. And I do believe that's actually, like way better than expected. So yeah, that's actually, it for now. So actually, this is actually the discussion on Dedication, an album from the Bi-City Rollers. So go ahead and listen to it because they actually have one cover version of I Only Wanna Be With You. I've heard of this one before, actually. It was really nice. And actually, they do have a lot of songs from the Bi-City Rollers. So if you want to, go and listen to it, go ahead. Go ahead. It's fine. It's okay. I'm not forcing anyone to do it. So it's totally fine. Anyways, that's all for now. And this is me. Hey guys, it's Wheeling, the gamer girl here. And today we're actually going to do a short album discussion on It's a Game. So actually, this album is released as the 7th and 6th studio album in 1977, and it's actually supported as a lead single for It's a Game in the UK, while as You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually released as a lead single from the album in North America. But elsewhere, You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually released from the album's second official single release. So this is actually their cover album right here. It looks like it's like in space. There's some checkers, and also there were some kings, queens. I'm not too sure what is this one, but it's actually a constellation right here. But they still have the tartan lettering right here for the album. So it's actually released in July of 1977. They started recording it maybe early 1977. And as well as this album actually received moderate commercial success internationally. Because of this, it actually reached number 1 in Japan, and it actually reached the top 20 in Australia, Canada, and the UK, as well as the top 30 on the Billboard 200 in the US. But It's a Game is actually the 5th original studio album that was actually produced by Harry Maslin, fresh from the success with singer David Bowie. But despite them receiving the gold album certification in the US, the group's popularity had waned because of their initial burst of fame, and because of the lineup changes that could see in the diminishing success. Guitarist Ian Mitchell went back to Ireland to rejoin the band Rosetta Stone, and because of this, Pat McGlynn actually toured with them until he left the band less than a year later. And as well as this, McGlynn is also presented in the It's a Game music video for the title track, indicating he is at least somewhere because of his presence on the album. Because of McGlynn's departure, the band would actually perform into a 4-piece band comprising of Derek Longmire, Eric Faulkner, Les McEwen, and Stuart Woody Wood. And because they would actually do this until maybe in early of 1978, Alan's Longmire, Derek's brother, actually rejoined the fold in 1978, releasing their last album, Strangers in the Wind, which is actually the group's sixth original album. And because of this, this album never received any certifications because their initial popularity burst of fame actually waned. And because the trends are actually changing, Rollermania was actually over. And because of this, by 1978, all of them, including the tartan outfits, were gone. And because their album was actually going to be released the later next year, which is Strangers in the Wind, Les would actually leave the band after the album was released. And I've noticed the reason why actually Les left the band is because during a concert tour in Japan, he was actually going a bit crazy. I'm not just trying to be rude, but I know this story because I seen this one on the nostalgia page that he actually did do really horrible things to his bandmates. And I do believe the youngest member, Stuart Woody Wood, actually did kick him off of the stage. Yeah, it was very, very frightening. I don't know why he did it, but with him and Woody, I think it's a rocky relationship ever since, the decline of their popularity. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong. I'm so sorry. Just try to correct me if I'm right, because I don't want to go into the next album, Strangers in the Wind. But please do note, I am actually excluding this album for, my discussions because we're only going to focus on the popular Bay City Roller albums, which only received certifications in the UK and the US. And because of this, in the US track, You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually released as a lead single that reached the number 10 on the Hot 100 Billboard in August of 1977. But outside the US, It's a Game, which was originally released as a single by the British group String Driven King in 1973, was the first single off, but it was very unsuccessful. The top 10 status actually achieved in Australia, Austria, Germany, Ireland, Switzerland, and also reaching number 21 in New Zealand and also the UK. In the UK, It's a Game, it's actually the 12th Bay City Rollers chart hit that actually was the first single for the 12 to peak below the top 10. You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually a song which is more popular among people, and especially because the popularity was declining and the trends were changing, a lot of people would still listen to this song till this day. And as well as this, it was also released as a second single in the territories. Because of this, It's a Game actually has been a hit. You Make Me Believe in Magic was actually proved significantly less popular than the preceding single. The relevant peaks for this song was in Australia, Germany, New Zealand, and the UK, with no chart placing in Austria, Ireland, and Switzerland. You Make Me Believe in Magic, which is a song from the Bay City Rollers, actually did mark their final UK appearance. Another track off, which is a song called The Way I Feel Tonight, was also issued as a second single in the US, where it actually marked the Bay City Rollers' final Hot 100 appearance that peaked to number 24 outside the US. The Way I Feel Tonight was also a third single off, which only charted in Australia and New Zealand. There was also another CD with 3 bonus tracks in 2007. Are You Cuckoo? Dedication by the version that Les McEwen sang. I've mentioned this earlier for my dedication album discussion, and The Way I Feel Tonight. It was actually a single version. There's also another review from the New York Daily News. It's a Game. It's a very terrific album. However, there are some viewers that claim to have 2.5 stars. But overall, it's actually uneven for casual listeners. But that the Bay City Rollers fans will find that no debut that will actually be really easy to listen. So for the track listening, there are 2 versions, and one is It's a Game by Chris Adams. Sorry. My throat is really bad. It's very dry. Please, I'm sorry. Please forgive me if my throat is really dry. So sorry about it. You Make Me Believe in Magic, Don't Let the Music Die, Love Power, and The Way I Feel Tonight. For side 2, they also have Love Fever, Sweet Virginia, Inside a Broken Dream, Dance, 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 and Rebel, Rebel, which is also a cover version. They covered this one from David Bowie's Rebel, Rebel. It was actually included right here. So the personnel actually still leads the same, except Stuart Woody Wood is also on the bass guitar as well. And as well as this, Pat McGlynn is still here, but he was on the rhythm guitar for It's a Game. So yeah, that's actually what happened. So we got the charts right here. The charts don't actually look that bad, but I do believe it's actually their final album to have the gold certification. I don't really think like, Strangers in the Wind or, Elevator, Voxx, and Ricochet actually do have it. And because of this, I'm sure that the song The Pie, When I Say I Love You, was actually included in the Strangers of the Wind album. And because of this, back in 1978, when the Rollers actually had like the most successful lineup with the bassist and also the oldest founding member, aka Derek's brother, Alan Longmire, he actually did rejoin the band. And I do believe that these songs from It's a Game, along with the other albums, some of the songs were actually included. Not all of them, but what I was gonna say is that yes, some of them were actually also included in the Croft Superstar Hour. And because of this, some of them were actually included. I'm really that sure it's actually like a little less successful, but it's still successful, unlike, some of the albums which actually includes like the Strangers in the Wind album, which the Classic Five actually released their last album before Les left the band. And because of this, they changed their name to the Rollers, and they also added the Rabbit frontman, Duncan Foy. I've actually mentioned this before, because they actually did hire Duncan Foy to replace their longtime lead singer, Les McEwen. They tried it with a 4-piece band, but there was no success. For 1979 Elevator, as Duncan, who was the frontman, he actually continued to make 2 more albums, Voxx, Ricochet, and Elevator, until 1981, where the Rollers actually began to stop performing their music until 1982, when Les, Ian, and Pat returned to the Japan reunion tour. And yes, these kinds of songs were sung here, except for Strangers in the Wind, Elevator, Voxx, and Ricochet. These ones are actually included with Duncan Foy, if you don't know what I seriously mean. Okay? Look, I'm not just trying to say that I may not know about the Rollers. They actually just changed their name. I'm so sorry if you guys don't know what I'm actually talking about. That I do apologize if I'm saying it wrongly, And actually, because of this, yeah, it started to really go downhill. And, sometimes you have to accept the fact is that once, popularity declines, the trends will change all the time. And, sometimes there will be lineup changes no matter what. We all have to accept the fact that, just because the late frontman of the Bi-City Rollers is no longer with us, or, back in the late 70s when he was actually replaced by the Rabbit frontman Duncan Foy, that still doesn't mean that he's forgotten. He'll still be in our hearts. And because of this, I'm not trying to say that I don't really like Duncan Foy, in my opinion. I just think that, a lot of people are actually just trying to say and comment to say that it's not the same without Les, I do believe that way. And, sometimes when they post the pictures on Facebook, they would actually put like, some of the songs that Les sang with Duncan Foy. I don't actually know why they did it or something, but just trying to ignore the mistake. And as well as this, yes, I've noticed that a lot of people were complaining because they actually think that the user did put the picture of Duncan Foy with less. Like, I'm serious, why? Why did they do that? And actually, because of the release of Ricochet, Foy actually left the Rollers in 1981. And because of this, the later year, back in 1982, Les returned along with Ian and Pat. Because I noticed that Ian was actually here in the band as well. I think he was also performing from these 5 albums, excluding the ones right here. Hello. And as well as this, I think like Pat McGlynn as well, he was also here, you know. I'm not just trying to be rude, I'm not trying to, be disrespectful on what Foray has done, but I really do dedicate his work. And actually, because I haven't heard of the Roller songs before, and I do believe that, sometimes when a song from It's a Game was actually replaced with Foray, I do believe that sometimes, what were they even thinking? What do they even want? Just remember this. We all make mistakes sometimes, but you need to really check your sources out. And because of this, sometimes they will just think like, why is Foray in here? Why is he actually here on the Facebook post saying that, he really sang Bye Bye Baby, Saturday Night, Once Upon a Star, or any other songs that he sang? Well, it was supposed to be Les who actually sang, so I would just say that people are saying that please just give like Les the opportunity, when I seriously mean. I'm not trying to be rude, but I think this actually happened in Facebook, and I'm not trying to become, very, very sensitive. I noticed that sometimes users don't really check out their facts, and this thing actually does happen, when you're writing something. So please do remember this. Always check your facts. If you don't know anything, please check Wikipedia. It's always there to help you, instead of like people just trying to post irrelevant pictures of what I seriously mean. Because sometimes I do see this one like Bye Bye Baby. I don't actually see like the Fab Five, but instead I actually do see the Rollers, including Duncan Foy. I've been getting this kind of thing a lot, to say please post the right picture, but unfortunately it still doesn't work within the user. So I think that's the reason why they don't want to listen, so just try to ignore it. I'm not trying to be rude, but sometimes this thing actually happens on Facebook where somebody posts the wrong picture. Well, it's supposed to be the singer, not the other person. So yeah. Anyways, I think that's all for now for my discussion. I'm really sorry. As planned, I'm so sorry. I wanted to do a short video, but I think I talked too long. My throat's getting really dry soon. I'm gonna sign off now. So if you do have any questions on this album, please do let me know, and I'll see you next time. Bye.